The United States just ordered a naval blockade of every single Iranian port on Earth. Iran already has its own blockade running at the exact same location right now. 2 blockades, 1 strait, and 20% of the world's oil supply caught between them. Your gas bill is about to reflect every single decision made in that strait this week. Here is what is actually happening and why it matters to every American right now. The Strait of Hormuz is a strip of water barely wider than the distance across Los Angeles. 1/5 of every barrel of oil on the planet moves through that single narrow channel daily. Before this war started, more than 100 fully loaded tankers transited that strait every day. Since Iran closed it 6 weeks ago, roughly a dozen ships per day are getting through. Oil prices are up 30% and gas already crossed $5 a gallon in California. And this week, the situation escalated into something the world has not seen since World War II. On April 13th, U.S. Central Command issued a formal notice to mariners with a hard deadline. This is not a press release or a social media post, it is a legal maritime document. It was sent directly to every ship captain operating anywhere near the Persian Gulf region. The document says U.S. Central Command will enforce a naval blockade of all Iranian ports. The blockade covers Iran's entire coastline, every port, every oil terminal, every pier. That includes Kharg Island, where roughly 90% of Iran's oil exports get loaded. Any ship entering or leaving that zone without U.S. authorization faces interception and capture. Neutral ships already docked in Iranian ports were given 1 grace period window to leave. After that deadline passed on Sunday afternoon, there were absolutely no exceptions remaining. Now here's the critical detail that almost no mainstream outlet is explaining to you clearly. American warships are not sailing into the Persian Gulf or up to Kharg Island right now. They are stationed in the Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea on the eastern side of the Strait. Think of it this way, Iran controls the door from the inside with mines and armed drones. America is now standing outside that same door on the other side, holding a very large net. Any Iranian tanker that loads oil at Kharg Island must pass through the strait to deliver it. And waiting on the other side of that strait right now is the United States Navy. Ships going to Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, or the UAE are still free to pass without interference. But any neutral ship suspected of carrying cargo bound for Iran can be boarded and searched. That is the American blockade, precise, documented, legally framed, and active as of Sunday. Now let's talk about Iran's blockade because it was already running before America's even started. 6 weeks ago, the IRGC declared the international shipping lane through the strait off limits. The lane that every ship on Earth had been using freely for more than 50 consecutive years. Iran then drew a new map with lanes running directly through their own territorial waters instead, and they hinted clearly enough for every shipping company to understand that old lanes may be mined. You do not need to actually blow up a tanker to stop 100 ships from moving through. You only need owners and their insurance companies to believe you might blow one up. The moment insurers pulled coverage on the old routes, ships stopped moving. That is the modern blockade. Here's what Iran's new map actually costs every ship that wants to move oil through the Strait. Iranian officials have already floated the price up to $2 million per ship for safe passage. $2 million per ship multiplied by over 100 ships per day before this war started. Analysts ran the numbers that is close to $100 billion per year flowing to the IRGC, the same IRGC that runs Iran's missile program and has declared the old shipping lane a war zone. Iran is not just blockading a shipping lane, they are building a permanent toll booth on your energy. So right now, Iran controls the western side and America controls the eastern side of that strait. Every commercial tanker in the entire Persian Gulf is effectively trapped between those two forces. The last time 2 competing blockades operated simultaneously in the same conflict was World War II. That is not dramatic language, that is exactly what the historical maritime record actually shows. Now, how did we get here so fast and what pushed both sides over the edge this week? For several days, the U.S. and Iran had been negotiating face-to-face in Islamabad, Pakistan. These were the first direct government talks between Washington and Tehran since the year 1979. Over 40 years of silence between these two governments finally broken at a table in Pakistan. Vice President J.D. Vance led the American team alongside Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. Iran sent its foreign minister and parliamentary speaker their most senior available negotiators. They sat across from each other and negotiated without stopping for over 21 consecutive hours. 21 hours. And they walked away with absolutely nothing to show for any of it. America's red line was simple: Iran must commit to giving up its nuclear weapons development program. Iran refused. Iran's counteroffer was this: lift all sanctions, pay full war reparations, and hand over the Strait. Let that sink in. Iran wanted America to pay them, then step aside while they run the chokepoint forever. The U.S. delegation stood up from that table in Islamabad and walked out of the room. Within hours, Trump posted his response, and the oil market moved within minutes of reading it. He ordered the Navy to blockade ships entering or leaving the Strait and destroy Iranian mines. He ordered interception of every vessel that had already paid Iran's toll to pass through safely. He warned in capital letters that any Iranian firing at American ships would be blown to hell. CENTCOM followed with the formal notice, more measured in language but identical in meaning. America is now formally in the blockade business, and every ship captain on Earth knows it. Here is where this goes far beyond a U.S. and Iran standoff and into genuinely dangerous territory. Pull up live marine traffic right now and look at the ships using Iran's new controlled route today. A significant number of the vessels currently hugging Iran's coastline are flying Chinese flags. China currently has 5 warships positioned in the region and has said nothing about Iran's blockade. Beijing said nothing about the toll, nothing about the new routes, nothing about the seas Strait. That complete silence from the world's second-largest military tells you exactly where China stands. So here's the question that nobody in Washington wants to answer in public right now. What does the U.S. Navy actually do when it intercepts a Chinese-flagged tanker with a Chinese crew? A tanker that legally loaded Iranian oil at Karg Island and paid Iran's toll to do it. Does America board that ship and start a confrontation with the world's second-largest military power? That Chinese-flagged tanker is coming through. The only question right now is exactly when. There is a second variable that could make everything dramatically worse, and it is getting no coverage. 1,500 miles south of Hormuz sits the Bab el-Mandeb, and that is Houthi territory. The Houthis are Iran's most capable proxy force and have every reason to re-enter this conflict now. If the Houthis activate, every tanker currently loading at Yanbu on Saudi Arabia's Red Sea coast is a target. Yanbu is Saudi Arabia's backup oil export route, the one specifically designed to bypass Hormuz entirely. Iran already attacked the pipeline feeding crude oil directly into the Yanbu export terminal. If Houthis then block the exit at Bab el-Mandeb, Saudi Arabia has no remaining export route left. Not for Saudi Arabia, not for Iraq, not for the UAE, every route simultaneously cut off. That scenario would be the most severe energy supply shock the world has seen since the 1970s. We are not there yet, but every single piece of that architecture is already in place today. Now let's talk about what enforcing this blockade actually looks like on the water in real life. 2 years ago, the U.S. successfully seized Venezuelan oil tankers, and that operation went smoothly. Those were commercial vessels with merchant sailors aboard. Nobody was trying to shoot back. An Iranian tanker leaving Karg Island right now is a completely and fundamentally different situation. The IRGC could have military personnel on board, and the vessel itself could be booby-trapped. It could be carrying man-pads, portable missile systems capable of shooting down a Navy helicopter. This is not a law enforcement boarding operation. This is a war measure against a military adversary. Ships seized under this blockade would be sailed south all the way down to Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia is the massive U.S. base in the Indian Ocean with a lagoon big enough for dozens of ships. That same base has already been targeted directly by Iranian ballistic missiles twice this conflict. The place America plans to hold seized Iranian ships is a place Iran has already tried to destroy. The U.S. military understands every single one of these risks, and they are proceeding anyway. Most credible maritime analysts believe the blockade is designed to pressure Iran back to the table. Both blockades, the military buildup, the USS Boxer racing across the Pacific, all of it is leverage. Expensive and genuinely dangerous leverage, but leverage designed to force a deal, not a battle. The problem with leverage is it only works if the other side actually blinks before you do. Iran has not blinked once since this crisis began 6 weeks ago on February 28th. Here's what the dual blockade means for your wallet, not in 6 months right now, today. Brent crude was under $75 a barrel the week before this war started in February. It has been trading near $97, a 30% increase already baked into everything. Gas at the pump, groceries on the shelf, heating bills, the 30% is already in the system. Oil does not just run your car, it runs every truck that moves every product you buy anywhere. When oil is disrupted at this scale for this long, everything downstream gets more expensive with a delay. That delay is exactly what makes it feel invisible until your grocery bill stops making any sense. The math on recovery from a shipping disruption is this: 1 day closed equals 1 week to recover. The Strait has been disrupted for 6 weeks, that is 40-plus weeks of recovery time minimum. Nearly 10 months before global oil shipping gets back to normal, even if a deal is signed tomorrow. We saw this same math in 2021 when the Ever Given got stuck sideways in the Suez Canal. Just 6 days blocked in Suez and global shipping took 6 to 12 weeks to fully recover. Hormuz has been closed for 6 weeks with mines, drones, and a government actively enforcing it. The damage to your wallet is not coming, the damage is already here, working silently through the system. Add a dual blockade with no resolution, and you are looking at elevated prices well into late 2026. That is not a worst-case forecast, that is the current trajectory if nothing changes in coming weeks. So here is exactly what you need to be watching over the next 72 hours, not the headlines. Forget press conferences, forget social media posts, forget Iranian state media claiming ships turned back. Open marine traffic and watch whether U.S. warships begin actively stopping ships east of the Strait. Watch whether commercial supertankers start shifting course back toward the international lane in Omani waters. Watch whether a Chinese-flagged tanker gets intercepted because that changes everything overnight. And watch the Bab el-Mandeb. Any increase in Houthi activity means this conflict is expanding fast. Tankers moving through the international lane is the only real signal that anything has actually changed. Not a handshake in Islamabad, not a statement from the White House tankers physically moving. If those ships start flowing again through Omani waters, your gas prices come down over 6 months. If the dual blockade holds, talks stay collapsed, and the Houthis re-enter, you already know the answer. 2 blockades are running simultaneously at the most critical energy choke point on the entire planet. The peace talks collapsed after 21 hours and Iran walked away demanding ownership of the Strait. The U.S. responded with a formal naval blockade document sent to every ship captain in the region. And right now in the Gulf of Oman, American warships are in position watching, waiting for the order. Every tanker sitting at anchor in the Persian Gulf right now represents a cargo that will not arrive. Every day that cargo does not move is another week added onto the timeline before prices come down. Nobody in that Gulf has blinked yet, and the next 72 hours will determine who does first.